So, we're doing it, guys. Like I said, it's new for me. It's new for Tim, new for all of us. We're learning with you guys. And, so we're going to go into our next topic. Well, we'll talk about the trade talks for the Mets. And we can do a lot of these. First off, questions, me and Tim have been getting. Are we buyers or sellers at the deadline? And the thing is, before I say what we're going to do, this is what I have to say. First of all, besides Jimenez, our minor leagues are actually atrocious. We are terrible. So, if we were to trade for a big piece, we not really have a lot of things to trade, mind you. So, yes. And, excuse me, guys. We really wouldn't have a lot. We'd have to trade for, we'd have to obviously put in some current players in to trade for a current player. And I've had some players in mind, and some of them, the two big ones are Nick Castellanos and Clint Frazier, and also Bauer, Bumgarner. Those are the four guys that are probably not on the Mets' radar because they're too cheap to go after them, but on my radar as a Mets fan. So, obviously, I don't think the Mets should be buyers, or I don't think the Mets should be sellers. If the Mets lose 10 games in a row, they should most likely be sellers. But that doesn't mean... When I mean sellers, I mean trade away Wheeler and try to ship off Cespedes just for cash. Like any team that'll take Cespedes, just ship him off. And trade Wheeler maybe to a team like the Yankees or the Padres. Mainly the Padres because they have a good farm system and most likely will take Wheeler. Who just need a pitcher. Because most likely Wheeler won't sign with us. And people are saying trade DeGrom. Not DeGrom, excuse me. Trade Syndergaard. I do not think we should trade Syndergaard. And I don't think we will. I'd be shocked if we do. I'd be heartbroken if we do. Guy's one of my favorite Mets. He has he has a good sense of humor. But besides that, he also throws 100-mile-per-hour fastball and 92-mile-per-hour sliders. I would, the guy has one of the high ceilings in all of baseball. I don't think the Mets should trade him. But if the Mets do end up bouncing back, which this year they've always somehow been able to do, knock on wood, I think the Mets should trade for Clint Frazier as my number one option. Looks like looks like the Yankees don't have a really big future with him. They just extended Aaron Hicks to a 7-year deal. They have Stan. They're not going to trade Stan. No one wants him. The Yankees are stuck with him until 2050. And Judge, obviously, he's a perennial superstar. He's not going anywhere. And even with the DH, you have Edwin Encarnacion. And then if you DH anyone, they have Gardner up there, and he's the life and soul of that Yankees team. He's not going anywhere either. So I wouldn't be surprised if, not necessarily Frazier, but I wouldn't be surprised if they look to trade Gardner at the deadline. Not at the deadline, but in the offseason. So, my quote-unquote trade for Clint Frazier. The Mets are going to have to give up Wheeler. They're going to have to give up Jimenez. And the Yankees would be a good team to take Cespedes, but obviously they want to do it in this deal. And we would receive Clint Frazier. The Mets would also probably have to include some other young studs we have. Tim would be much better off saying this trade because Tim knows a lot of minor leaguers and actually has a lot of connections with them too. So I don't know those minor league pieces. Tim could probably tell you if you ask him. Go message him if you want, but I honestly couldn't tell you. So that's my probably projected trade for Clint Frazier. You'd have to, Clint Frazier is a very, very, very talented player. You'd have to give Wheeler because the Yankees need pitching, and he's at the end of his contract. And you trade Jimenez, who's a very good shortstop prospect, and the Yankees, love bolstering up their farm system, and actually might use him because they can move Torres to third, or because I don't even know. They have so many players, the Yankees. They have so many talented players. It's not even fair. They have LeMahieu, and oh my God, I can't even. But, the Yankees could use him to trade for an asset, or just the Yankees love having a good farm system. It never hurts. Never hurts to have a good farm system. I'd say the obviously if the Mets have to include another, good prospects. But, I do believe the Mets can make a trade happen for Clint Frazier, not because of how bad he is, because the guy's very underrated, but he can, obviously the Yankees, they may not look to ship him away at the deadline, but, he's a major league all-star playing in the minor leagues. That's all I got to say about that. That's pretty much the exact same trade you would have for Castellanos, but I don't think you'd have to include the other, extra minor leaguers, because the Tigers are rebuilding. They want, they don't want to be mediocre anymore. They'd probably be willing to trade Castellanos for not necessarily Wheeler. They might not necessarily have to trade. We might not have to trade Wheeler in this. Maybe just Jimenez and just Castellanos straight up. I don't think they'd have to include Wheeler in that. They definitely could take away pieces because, the Tigers would have no need for Wheeler. He's on his expiring contract and not contending, so we won't have to trade Wheeler in that. And that probably is more of a realistic trade than getting Clint Frazier, because you'd have to give up less. The Tigers don't need Wheeler and are rebuilding. And also, people are also talking about, do we re-sign Wheeler? Even if we do trade him, we re-sign Bruce. I can Helmez with Wheeler that the Mets actually have a lot of, are connected to New York. Syndergaard and DeGrom, the reason we extended DeGrom is because he felt, very connected to New York. And, Wheeler, because he was injured and, didn't have enough playing time, hasn't really felt that. So I think he'll walk in free agency. So I was actually, I really wish he played very good this year. But who knows, maybe because he didn't play very good, at least his first half of the year, maybe the Little Mets will be able to re-sign him on a 2-year. So, I would be happy with that. The other two pitchers, obviously the pitchers, we got Mad Bum and Bauer. I would prefer Bauer, just in the regular season. I think Bumgarner becomes an animal of a man in the playoffs. So, and Bowers becomes terrible in the playoffs, so Bumgarner isn't good in the season. So, it's really, pick your poison here. Obviously Bumgarner's, he's been, had a shaky start recently. So, honestly, you'd have to give up Wheeler to the Indians. I don't know about, I think, like I said, Cleveland might be a more realistic thing because Bowers isn't probably as highly noted as Bumgarner is. So you'd have to give up Jimenez. You'd have to give up prospects, and you'd have to probably get in. They also might want someone like Dom Smith, and are the Mets and our Mets fans willing to trade that Dom Smith away? I don't know. They probably might they're not going to trade. They might want, an active player. They might want Nimmo, even though he's injured, so they're going to get something out of it, but they'll be able to tank. And we also, not saying for the Mets, but the Indians are also looking to ship out Francisco Lindor. So I wouldn't be surprised if Clint Frazier is a Cleveland Indian in a couple weeks. Just saying. So yeah, and Madison Bumgarner, I feel like Jimenez is, you pretty much have to throw him into every deal because, I also wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees end up picking Bowers or Bumgarner with Clint Frazier because the guy is, I'd say, technically he's a prospect. So he's like the number one prospect in the league because, technically he's a prospect. Is he even considered a prospect? Who knows anymore? But, yeah, that's who I would, So, picking up the number one prospect in all of baseball for the Mets wouldn't hurt them. Another guy you could have, I could have said trade for Hinchavarria and put him at third, honestly. For the Mets, also, I also think we should trade Todd Frazier. It's his contract year. He's not going to sign back. I think this is what the Mets should do. They would put McNeil at third and you'd hide Dom Smith in left field. And against lefties, you bet J.D. Davis, because I'm pleasantly surprised to say this, Dom Smith is one of our best hitters. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think it's a good thing, because no expect to be. It's not that the other guys have been bad, it's that Dom Smith has been playing very, very consistently, very, very well. So, also, like I said, people are saying, should we trade Dom Smith at the deadline? No, I think we should keep him unless he's part of a trade for someone like Clint Frazier, Castellanos, Bumgarner, Bauer. Not restricted to those guys. Who knows? Maybe they make a big blockbuster deal to get Francisco Lindor. Then I don't even know what they do. They have too many infielders. Then they put Lindor at third, Lindor at short, McNeil at third. They'd probably include Rosario in that trade. And Dom Smith, and pretty much all their prospects. But also, the last thing I want to talk about before I move on is Yoenis Cespedes. Not how he's recovering, because he's out for the season at least. But if we can just literally just trade him for nothing. Yoenis Cespedes, I love the guy. 2015 to 2016, he gave me as fans some phenomenal memories. But the guy's on a tear when he's healthy. The guy is like MVP good. But the thing is, he's out. He's injured, and he's been injured for a long time. Will he ever be that same player? Most likely not. I'd be surprised if he was. I'd be pleasantly surprised if he was. But, I feel like if we can just put Cespedes' contract on a team. The problem is no one wants Cespedes. He's out. He's injured. Who knows if he'll even be good? Just any possible way we can chip Cespedes' contract, without having to give up Jimenez or Smith or any one of those guys. That would be very, very, very appreciated, to say the least. Now we're also going to talk about the All-Star game voting, and how that is the biggest joke in all of baseball. So, if you didn't know, Aaron Judge is fifth in outfielder votes, and he's played like 20 games. Peter Alonso is currently batting .260, has 24 home runs, and leads and could just stop hitting every ball he sees right now and win Rookie of the Year. And Jeff McNeil, the guy bats like .350. He can go for like 2 for 5 in a day, and his average goes down. Kid absolutely freaks. I think this guy reminds me this guy's like behind his time. People say they're ahead of their time. This guy's like behind his time. If that makes any sense. The guy plays like he should belong in the 60s or the 70s, Willie Mays-esque a little bit. And I do believe that McNeil should be in the All-Star game. And I do believe Alonso. Everyone's voting Josh Bell, and the guy, was on a tear for 3 weeks and then just went back to being Josh Bell. People are like, oh, NL MVP, Josh Bell. No, the guy is not that good. He was on a tear. He was on an absolute tear in Pittsburgh for a couple weeks. But, excuse me. I don't think the guy is currently starting the All-Star game. Why? Josh Bell does not deserve to be starting the All-Star game over a guy who is in the NL MVP race. The guy is, come on. You're going to tell me a guy like Alonso isn't in the NL MVP race. A guy who's batting .260, .270 on the year, has 24 home runs, and doesn't just hit baseballs, but destroys baseballs, and is also in one of the biggest markets is in the biggest market in the world. It wouldn't hurt the MLB if they made Alonso NL MVP. Just saying. The guy plays in New York City. If he was a Yankee, let's be real here, that guy would be like in front of every magazine, in front of every billboard. He'd already be declared Rookie of the